if you don't have tenants, but you're about to get tenants, if you're working on the property, or if people oftentimes want to check the water pressure. If you don't have the water on, they're not going to be able to do that. If you are creating garbage because you're doing some cleaning or whatever, and you haven't set up your garbage service, you'll need to do that, or else you're going to have garbage to start piling up and all that stuff.
All right, welcome back to Invested and Rested. So, we are on our final episode of our 4-part series where any newbies that are interested in starting investing in real estate can truly learn the first steps to getting started. So, our 4 episodes are goals and finances, education and gathering your team, analyzing deals, making offers in the contract process, and then organizing your business. So go back and listen to the last couple episodes if you haven't listened to them already. So before we get started here, if anytime during this series you're thinking, I just want to ask Caitlin and Rihanna about my personal situation because I'm a little confused about X, Y, and Z. Well, we're actually running a special right now for one-off coaching sessions where you can get personalized attention to answer any of your questions and talk about your goals with us. So just head over to investedandrested.com and you'll see the special right on our homepage. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Now that you have a clear vision, you are getting educated in gathering your team, and you're now getting comfortable with analyzing deals and the contract process. Now it is time to organize your business. I think it's so easy for people to forget, or it's easy for people to think about this as like, oh, yeah, I just have this property on the side. It kind of does its own thing. And to forget that you're actually running a business and to treat this like running a business. More than likely, you have another job when you're getting started. So it's easy to just think, oh, yeah, there's, this deferred maintenance. Oh, there's somebody needs a light bulb. And maybe you have a property manager, then those cases, that's a different situation. But there's probably still stuff where you need to take this seriously and treat it like a business. This will also help with filing your taxes, keeping your records straight, and keeping notes about the property. And then this will make it so much easier to scale from the beginning. Again, a lot of these things that we're going to discuss today are more so things that some of which I knew about, but I did not do when I first got started because I was like, oh, yeah,
I didn't do mine.
like, oh, it's just one property. We'll just use my same bank account. That's so easy. Oh, I could take a cash payment. I could do Venmo, whatever it is. No, organize this like a serious business because soon you will have more properties under your belt. You're still going to be busy at your 9 to 5. And it is so much harder to unwind those bad habits and start fresh. So just start it right away.
Yeah, I wish I would have right away too.
You live and you learn. Yes.
Take your advice and not
Please
do as
do.
I did.
So we're not going to touch too much on the property management piece of that just because we could literally have a whole different podcast series about property management. Yes.
We will one day.
Yes, we will. And we will definitely talk about the nitty-gritty of property management. And Caitlin and I are certainly experts in this area. And, she works right now for a property management company. I used to, and I still self-manage. So there are so many steps to this where we are very intentional and definitely have a lot of information to share. But the first thing to take a look at is, are you self-managing or are you hiring a property manager? Something to take into account.
And running your numbers with that.
Yeah.
I run my numbers with my property management fee in there because I'm not going to property manage. So yeah, remembering that.
And moving forward, that's not something that I did either. My office kind of came with one, but then we just decided to do it ourselves, so saved some money with that. But there's a long story that goes along with that. But I for like duplexes, single families, this isn't something that I always did in the past because I was like, oh, I'm here for the foreseeable future. I'm going to do this. Now this is something that moving forward, if we do get more duplexes, single families, small multi, then I'm always going to put those numbers in there, even if in that moment I am self-managing, just so I can make sure I'm running it correctly from the beginning because at some point you probably aren't going to want to manage your properties anymore. And guess what? There's no harm done if you decide to keep managing it and keep that money instead. Extra bonus.
Yeah, even if you plugged it in now, you could, like, definitely pay
Yeah.
that to yourself every month and, like, take it out just as if you were a property manager for somebody
Yeah,
else's building.
absolutely. So a couple of things to note if you do inherit tenants that I just want to touch on really quick. So different items that I would grab from them or during the contract process, I would probably try to have most of this wrapped up actually, but and some of it is going to be directly from the tenant, and then some of it will be from the previous owner. So grabbing the tenant's social security number, their contact information, their emergency contact, the lease, a copy of the application, their security deposit with interest, and then asking them if there's any deferred maintenance that needs attention. Now, you did an inspection on this property already, but maybe there's something that's happened since, or maybe there is something small that's been bothering this tenant for years. You probably want to start off on a good foot with them. Maybe they just have a hole in their screen and there's bugs that keep getting through it or something. I don't know. Maybe there's something really small that can be done so that you and this tenant can get off on the right foot from the beginning.
Yeah.
Setting up utilities. I know this sounds super simple, but it's definitely some the stuff that you do not want to forget. Now, maybe the utilities are in the tenant's name, but maybe this is still a different area or different city, state. So you want to make sure you know who those utility companies are. And even if it's in the tenant's name, they typically need to know who that owner's is. So you want to reach out to them and make sure that everything is set up correctly. Or if it is in your name, great. Make sure you know who those utility companies are. Maybe you have a couple of different options that you can go with. Um, I would speak with your team about this too before closing so you can make sure that everything is all good and wrapped up.
Totally. Yeah, like, especially if you don't have tenants, but you're about to get tenants, if you're working on the property or if people oftentimes wanna check the water pressure. If you don't have the water on, they're not gonna be able to do that. If you are creating garbage because 'cause you're doing some cleaning or whatever, like, and you haven't set up your garbage service, you'll need to do that or else you're gonna have garbage to start piling up and all that stuff. So, uh, yeah, it just looks better. Like, I'm renting out a property right now for someone else, and every time I get there, the little sticker, the little door thing is on saying, "You haven't set up your water. You haven't"
No,
not the best look when I'm
no.
going, but, yeah, so just it's
Yeah.
a good thing to
And I
do.
have a lot of rentals in one specific city, and I want to keep a really good relationship with everybody that works for the city. Like, because I would like to get more properties there, and I do not wanna be on
Yeah.
the shit list. Let's just say it. Don't wanna be on the list.
I know, it is annoying because you have to spend a little bit of money while you're getting
Mhm.
tenants, or, I mean, for buildings too, you have to have lights in the
Mhm.
hallways and, like, stuff that you don't even if the tenants are paying their own, there are still utilities you
Mhm.
have to pay. It's hard to
Yeah,
keep track of.
for sure. And the next thing that we're gonna jump into is LLCs. Do you need an LLC? What does it mean? Should you have this going, or should you have your LLC ready before you even start to look for properties? So I think that analysis paralysis and do I need an LLC are the two biggest reasons that people don't get started investing in real estate. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see that. Oh, definitely analysis paralysis. LLC, it didn't even cross my mind when I was but, yeah, like
Yeah.
we talked about before, I was not very intentional when I got started, uh, but and then the second time around, I had to for because or my 1031 exchange company actually
Mhm.
made it for me, so I
Nice.
didn't have to, um, and this last time I had to create the LLC. I waited until the very end to create the LLC because I didn't wanna pay it if our property wasn't gonna close, and I just bought it, and then it fell through a week
Oh,
later.
even if your LLC technically is like the property address, I guess technically you could use it too for somewhere else, even though it would be a little bit weird.
I know, I do have the street name in it. I was like, "I just gotta find another property on that
Manifest,
street."
manifest.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But at the end of the day, it was $200, and, when properties fall through, like, yeah, it wasn't Washington's very
Wow.
expensive for LLCs for whatever reason. California's like $800 a
Dang.
year. Uh, yeah, feel really terrible. But, so at the end of the day, it was just
Mhm.
it's a business
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah. And it's like that is so much better sometimes to have those expenses than have a property that just doesn't make sense. So it's like you just you just move on.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
with LLCs, I am not a lawyer or a CPA. This is just my experience. But for commercial properties, you can close in an LLC right away. For residential
Mm.
loans, if the loan is under like Freddie or Fannie, then typically you cannot close in an LLC. Now, some loan products, yes, you can have close right away in your LLC for a residential property. Um, but if you have the same ownership structure, for example, let's say it's just my property and I am on the title and I'm on the mortgage, and then I switch it into my own individual LLC, most of the time that is okay with all of the banks. I know there's some difference between if it's a Freddie or a Fannie loan, if they're okay with it going into an LLC later. Make sure that you contact your individual lender before you move forward with anything and get something in writing on if this is okay or not, because the bank is able to call your loan due in full. Sometimes if you
Oh.
switch, like if you put it into an LLC and then maybe it has more owners in to that LLC or something than what was originally stated on your in your mortgage.
You're making me worried right now because I've literally done this and I didn't get it in writing, but we bought the 4 unit with we bought the 4 unit
Mhm.
with partners, and 4 of us
Yeah.
were on the loan, and then we added 2 more, um, later, and then we transitioned the title to the
Mhm.
LLC because we got a residential loan, but I didn't he told me that that was okay, but I don't
Yeah.
have it in writing. I just
There's one of them too where I
there's
don't have it in writing, but I'm like, I did write down this person's, like, ID number and when I spoke to them and everything too, because sometimes getting it in writing is a little tricky. And I think most of the time, banks will work with you on this stuff. I don't know how often it really happens that loans will come due. I've never heard of that ever happening. I just know it can happen. So it's something that scares
yeah.
me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I know too in because mine is only a 5-year
Mm.
loan, so, uh, I know that we have to switch it back if we wanna get another residential loan, at that time, but
Yeah.
got 4 more years
Yeah,
to worry
figure
about
out when
that.
it comes out. Sometimes that's how it is.
Yes.
And then the next thing is the operating agreement. Again, some of these things are you want to have done really before you close. And an operating agreement, maybe it's something that you want to have done before you even start looking for properties, just to make sure that you're on the same page with your partners and you're looking for the same thing. So something doesn't fall through right after you close on the property and somebody wants out and you don't have this agreement completed. But if you the properties that I own, technically just me, then I don't have an operating agreement. I mean, now that I have LLCs, I guess technically I do, but they're pretty simple. I've done mine on they just switched the name. Busy? Busy, I think is what it's called, Bizee or something. You can file your LLC right on there. It costs a little bit more, but it's not very much, maybe like $500 total, to file your LLC, and then it will also create an operating agreement for you. Um, and yeah,
Cool.
to me, it's so easy. Caitlin, this is how we did ours too. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it, so
I'm like,
great,
this
thanks.
does not need to be overly complicated. And you and I have a very simple structure. Maybe if we had a more complicated structure, or if we were investing in real estate together and somebody, has more percentage ownership, or someone gets the cash flow and someone gets the depreciation, or when it's a little bit more than just 50-50, that's when, maybe you do want to involve a lawyer or somebody else and get some further direction. So it's not just like a simple cookie cutter agreement.
Yeah, my plan is for the next, time I have a partner is to give them the operating agreement without, like the boilerplate
Hmm.
operating agreement before we even make offers. Because this last partnership, we spent a lot of time revising the operating agreement in the middle of the
Hmm.
contract process, and it was really hectic to also be doing the contract process while doing this
Hmm.
operating agreement and revising it to her desires and whatnot. So I would next time around, I know I'm gonna start that off
Yeah.
earlier so that it's like set in place and all we have to do is plug
Yep.
and play the property that we bought and the ownership percentage and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So because the contract process is, like we were talking about with
Hmm.
inspections and stuff and financing, it's like it's already there's a lot
Hmm.
going on. So
Yeah.
yeah, especially when you have another
Right.
job too.
Right.
So
Exactly.
keep things to a
Yeah. And,
minimum.
and spread them out a little bit more so that, yeah, it isn't all at once. Sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Are you interested in real estate investing but not quite sure where to start? Or maybe you already own some properties but not sure what to do next? Or are you considering changing your investing strategy from long term to short term or single family to multifamily? Well, let us help.
From now until June 30th, we're running a promotion for one-off coaching sessions. Get personal attention to help make those investing dreams a reality with either Caitlin or Rihanna as your coaches. Grab a single session for $100 or one session with each of us for just $150. Go to investedandrested.com for more information. Again, that's investedandrested.com. So the next point is making a vendor list. So if you have a property manager in place, this isn't going to be as important as of a step, because your property manager should have a vendor list already in place and probably going to be taking care of contacting them when something comes up. But likely at some point you're going to need a handyman, a plumber, an electrician, etc. So starting this list right away and getting recommendations from your team, um, is going to be so much more helpful than trying at the 11th hour, trying to contact people and get pricing on specific scenarios. And that definitely can come up where, maybe you only have two good plumbers in mind and they both happen to be out of town, or they're not in the business, whatever it may be, and you need to just go off of Google or Angie's List. That's totally fine. But just trying to these things are going to come up. You're going to need them. So when it's not a hectic time, it's better to have this stuff already in place so that it can go a little bit more smoothly later. Like I have
Totally.
this super awesome air conditioning or HVAC guy. Oh, he is so fantastic. So, and he looks like Donald Trump. It's so funny. He just has like that, like kind of like whitish, like blonde, I don't red hair. I don't know. It's just like funny when I talk to him. But I've only actually
Does he have a big tan too?
no, but it would be a good be a good look at him. But I only had to meet him once. He actually came from a referral from a larger company. It was for my Airbnb. The AC went out. It's super hot in the summer. And so I thought I would just try calling a larger company, but they're like, we're actually super booked out. This is some local person we usually refer people over to. Try to contact him. I met him. His prices were absolutely fantastic. He was super nice. He's like, the first time I'm going to need you to meet me out in the property, give me permission, blah, 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 blah. And then moving forward, he's like, you can just give me the house code, leave a key outside, whatever it is. And now I can contact him too if I have like little questions on things, and he's happy to help and we have a great relationship. So, yeah,
Cool.
it's and sometimes these things kind of take time too. So I'm always changing my list, or even if I go to a networking event and I meet a handyman there, I will put them on my vendor list with notes of, "Hey, I haven't worked with this person yet, met them at X, Y, and Z. They like to work on whatever it may be." Um, just so I have it in my back pocket for a rainy day.
Totally. I did the same. I actually just got a new handyman, Jorge. He's amazing, but he's for
Yeah,
my own.
but same thing. You still need these
But
people.
yeah, you need them, and we had a handyman growing up, Mike, and he just became part of our family. Like he came to my brother's wedding.
Cool.
Like yeah, and his version of fancy was wearing two collared shirts. He didn't know what wearing fancy clothes is because he's always in his
I love it.
construction clothes. But he's worked with us for like 30 plus years, and so when I had my property
Mhm.
nearby, I just gave the tenants his number, and I'm like, I trust him
Mhm.
wholly. He is part of our family. Just text him or call him when you need something. He'll get approval from me, and it that kind of stuff works out great. And me being able to tell the tenants that I
Mhm.
trust him completely allowed them to allow him in when they weren't there, and felt more comfortable with him because I had such
Yeah.
trust in him. So, yeah, it is great to have a good vendor
Nice.
list.
Something I want to touch on for this too is don't be scared to get creative on how you are making your list, depending on what kind of town that you live in. So, our cabin is in a little town. I love it, but it's similar to like Schitt's Creek. Like, it's just so yeah, it's the
Middle of
middle of
nowhere.
nowhere. It's super tiny. It's really great, but we needed vendors up there. We live an hour and a half away. We're not going to be doing our own cleaning or, little things that come up here and there, whatever it is. We need contacts. So you can't just Google stuff because nobody has a website. Nobody has a Google business profile. So we would go
Right.
to like a gas station or a bar, restaurant in the area, and then everybody would have like the little bulletin boards of, "Hey, I'm a handyman. Hey, I clean houses," whatever it is, and we were actually able to find a lot of connections off of there, and we still grab like, we're like, "Oh, there's another cleaner there. Oh, there's this," and we're still kinda keeping an eye on that stuff because, you never know when something's gonna happen, and we also went around with cupcakes to all the neighbors that live right next to us just to introduce ourselves.
Oh,
It's like the
nice.
country, so,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think even in the city, this is a great thing to do, but I actually haven't met my neighbors across the street. They moved in a couple years ago, so I haven't done it here. But, up there, yeah, we went around everybody, introduced ourselves, brought them cupcakes, and then from there, we were actually able to make a lot of connections, and that has been so helpful. And then they're kinda keeping an eye on our property, which is great.
Great
Yeah.
place. Totally. My stepmom has a property up north. It's kind of on the way to Yosemite, and she had a cleaner, and like her neighbors were same thing, like had good relationships with the neighbors, and they called her and her house cleaner threw a raging party at the house.
Oh my god.
And I guess her plan was just to like throw this party and then clean up afterwards. The neighbors called and were like, "There's a really big party at your house, but I just
Yeah.
haven't seen, your
Yeah.
car's not here." And yeah, so that's a very good point. Like knowing your neighbors is always a good
My
idea.
god. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really wild. And yeah, great. Great thing. Yep, know your neighbor. The next thing is record keeping for your property. So, this is kind of boring admin work. This is what I'm talking about. It's so easy to skip. Yeah,
Or
it sucks. I mean, I hate doing it and it's definitely easier said than done. Let me just
yeah.
be honest about that. And especially, you're at a long day of work, then, maybe you have kids or family, whatever it is. And it's like, this is the last thing that you want to do is like write down what you did and what's going on and keep track of this stuff. But I would use like a Google Doc or maybe something similar to keep all of your information straight. And I know this is morbid and not fun to talk about, but in the event that you pass away, who is going to be taking on this work for you and how can you make it easier for your loved ones if they have to take over? And that's something I think about a lot and I'm still working on taking better notes on things because I do a lot of the admin work and it's all just up in my head and that is not the right way to do these things. Because if something happens and someone else needs to take over this at last minute, they're not gonna know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
So who I like to write down who the utility companies are, what they do, who's your loan with. Can you write down your password somewhere? I know that sounds super simple, but
Mm,
it's necessary that you put that somewhere and share it,
yeah,
maybe in your safe. I don't really know. I like to keep
totally.
paint colors and then maybe other specific renovation items in there too, in case you do need to get a couple more pieces of flooring or you want to know what kind of cabinets so that you could duplicate it for the next property too.
Yeah, I'm lucky in the sense that I have property managers that do and they do the construction, so they're keeping all tabs on all that kind of stuff, but I know for you, like, you're going to Home Depot and Lowe's all
Mhm.
the time and buying stuff, and you're buying stuff for different properties, so you have to keep it separate on separate credit cards and bank accounts and, um, yeah, so it depends definitely. I mean, I'm doing very light
Mhm.
bookkeeping, just a few expenses come from me directly, but even that is annoying. I did it for the single family home and all, but that was hard enough at
Yeah.
least. Even doing one single family home, I can't even imagine you
Yeah.
doing all the renovation
Yeah, things have
bookkeeping
gotten a
too.
little bit messy at times, but we were able to kind of work through it and learn as I go. Um, but that's why I'm like, oh man, if you can just do this from the very beginning, it will make it so much easier every single time that you get a new property.
Yeah, especially with the bank accounts and having a card for that account, and yeah, it just, that part has been really helpful too because when it was just us, it was so easy to just put everything on our personal account and then try to, like, weed it
Yep.
out later. So even just having the separate credit cards and bank accounts it really makes
Yes.
a difference. And yes, you're gonna have an annoying
Yeah.
amount of bank accounts, but
But oh, be so much
so be it.
easier. So much easier in the end. Highly recommend. Like doing your taxes and everything just becomes such a breeze when you have everything all separated. Instead
Yeah.
of trying to be like, oh, Chipotle, was that for this or was that a personal expense? Menards, which time did I go to Menards? You don't even have Menards. Home Depot, which time did I go to Home Depot? And what property was that for? Whatever.
Yeah. What is Menards? It's a Home Depot-ish?
Yeah, it's like a Home Depot, but it's so much better. Like there's so much more,
Oh.
like so many more options and the prices are so much better. Yeah. So when we did the Florida renovation, we always had to go to Home Depot or Lowe's and we're like, oh, I don't know where anything is. And everything was so much more expensive.
I've been loving Home Depot lately because on the first Saturday of the month,
Yeah.
they have a kids, workshop, and my boys love it. My older son couldn't go, it was last Saturday. My older son couldn't go, and he was, "Can you get me one?" So I, like, just put a kit in my pants and, took one home because it's free,
Mhm.
so, like, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be a big deal, but then I was like, "We spent $500 here
Yeah.
earlier this
It
week
yeah.
for our own home project, so I can steal the
Yeah.
$5."
That is so cool. I love that they do that, and also, I think it's just good in general for, like, kids to learn how to do that, but then also great marketing because where are the kids gonna grow when they grow up? They're gonna remember going to Home Depot, and I love it.
Yeah, and they give them little mini
Oh.
aprons, the orange apron, and Tanner we got home, it was super rainy the first one we went to. He We came inside and they were all cold, so they took a bath, and he got out of the bath with my 3-year-old, and he put his apron back on butt naked. The cutest picture of his little butt and the apron on. It's precious. That's gonna be one I show his
Yes,
girlfriends one day.
yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
So, anyways, totally not to do with record keeping, but,
Home Depot for kids,
yeah.
great. Another thing that you'll wanna organize if you are managing the rentals yourself is some sort of, yeah, property management system software. So, first of all, do not accept cash, even if you don't have this set up yet. Oh, I always used to pay cash. I don't know how to use an online system. No, do not accept cash. Way too easy to lose. Even if you were to hand them a receipt right away, I don't really like that as enough of a paper trail. Um, have it at least go through something. So there's some pretty affordable systems out there to use. Rent Ready, I believe it's $100 a year. That's actually what I use. I think I might have a code for that. So if anybody is interested, I can send that over. I For the amount of properties I have right now, it could there's some things I don't really like about it, but I mean, I came from a property management background. I used to use like the industry standard one for very large investors, which is called Yardi. Every system is going to have its own set of issues.
I know a lot of like small investors that just have a couple properties use
Yeah,
apartments.com
yeah, yeah.
and they can collect rent
Yeah.
on
Yep,
there.
that's a good.
Not really, I don't think it's a property management system, but you can easily
Yeah,
collect
and I think
rent
you can
there.
do applications on there now too, right? It's either that or
Maybe, I'm
Zillow, I
not
know you can
sure.
do.
You
Okay.
can definitely do Zillow applications. My company uses for applications something called Intuit application. There's also Rent Spree. There's a lot of different ones just for
Yeah, I use
application.
something called RHR, Rental History Reports. It's actually local here, but anybody could probably use it, and that's what I've always preferred. Um, if you have more properties at Folio, that's actually something I think I'm gonna be looking into soon. I'm just get
That's what
ah,
my
I
property
love
managers
it.
use, and I really liked
Mhm. Yeah.
I really like it. But I had my company that I worked for, we're actually just a
Mm.
leasing company, so we don't really need all the property management stuff. But, we were thinking about getting it, but our company is so small and we don't need all the extra tools that it doesn't financially make sense. But, for you, it probably would though,
Yeah,
pretty soon
I'm wondering
with
if
having once you off
yeah, I'm
maybe.
wondering if I can kinda because I remember I was looking into it when we first got the office, and we have a lot of renters because we also have virtual offices. So similar to like a PO
Oh, right.
box, except for you can actually use it when you're creating an LLC and you can actually make a Google profile with it. So has way more features and benefits than having a PO box. So I have a lot of tenants,
Mm.
but it's like $50 a month. It's great, but it's
Yeah.
not. So when I'm looking at my number of tenants compared to paying a few grand to use this system a year, it's you know, just a decision that I need to make. But I'm hoping that with that, maybe I can work something out with them too. That's what I'm going to talk to them about on my to do list. Because I'm like, I have tenants, just $50 a month for some of them, but I want to keep growing. So let's work together. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible.
And even if you are going to be using like apartments.com or something like that, just make sure you're keeping records straight for tenant notes as well. Um, I mean, just something in writing. This could be as simple as like a Google Doc. This could be as simple as like emailing yourself the notes of I had this conversation today, whatever happened, or if you need to give them a lease violation that needs to be in writing somewhere so that in the event you do need to look back on it, you have those records in place. Again, if you have a property manager, they're going to take care of that for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't have to think about that stuff.
Let me tell you about all the things I have to do and Caitlin doesn't do.
Well,
It's so nice. Someday.
yeah.
All right. Super fun part coming up, taxes. So this used to be the most overwhelming part of my life of being self-employed instead of working for somebody else. And I would be stressed like 9 months out of the year because it would be like, "Oh my gosh, it's October. I need to start doing this stuff. I haven't done any of it yet. I'm waiting till the last minute." And then, maybe we're filing late. So it's just like the majority of the year, I was always stressed about taxes. Well, in the last couple of years, I've gotten much better at this. And let me tell you the opposite side. Sometimes you need an accountability partner, which would be Caitlin in my scenario, where we talk about what's going to motivate me to get my taxes done. And I was on a high for like a straight month after they got done. Everything went so smoothly. I was like, oh my gosh, what else can I cross off my list? Because getting things done is fun, especially taxes. No, but for real, I felt really great after I got them done. It was awesome.
Yeah, and you got your face well, I don't think you know if you've had it
No,
yet, but that was her motivation was getting a facial
yeah,
app if water
yeah.
taxes done
I
on
did
time.
one, but I still haven't done the I need to set up my appointment, but oof. I did actually do acupuncture yesterday, not facial acupuncture. So,
Oh,
I just
great.
did other things. Oh, yeah, and I got my nails done. I fake nails. I really like just like something. small, but it was like, oh, it just sounded like a lot of work. Anyway, sometimes small goals could be great too.
Yeah, totally. But, like, just the fact that we talked about it, I was like, "Rihanna, you are gonna save yourself so much money if you get your
Mhm.
taxes done, and you could do something
Mhm.
fun with it instead of
Paying Uncle
just, like,
Sam.
paying it and then having 6 more months of
Yes.
dreading doing your
Yes.
taxes."
So if you need an accountability buddy, talk to Caitlin. She's your girl.
I will.
Yes.
We'll help you. Well, tough love
Yeah,
sometimes,
we
but,
need that.
usually
Yeah.
help. We are in the midst of our Real Estate Investing 101 series where you're learning all the steps to get started in real estate investing. But sometimes the more you know, the more questions you have. So on July 17th, you're going to want to hop on our group coaching call. It's totally free. You come on, ask your specific questions, and also get to learn from others and their questions. And you're also going to understand the benefit of coaching and how helpful it can be along your real estate journey.
Yeah, so head over to investedandrested.com to sign up today so that everybody can get something out of this. Our spots are limited, so make sure you secure your space today. Thanks, friends. So the first thing is you want to find yourself a real estate friendly CPA. Again, just like when you're looking for your property or you're looking for vendors, you're probably going to be interviewing multiple people. You're not going to find you're the best fit right away. Unfortunately, in my case, I hopped around to different CPAs a few times, and it really stinks starting over, but that's just how it went, I guess. But I wish I would have got like done my due diligence a little bit more, and then maybe I wouldn't have had to like hop around. And I wish I would have
Yeah.
talked to other people in the industry because then I think I would have been asking better questions. Because the
Mhm.
previous guy I was with, his family had owned real estate. It seemed like it was going to be a good fit. We did it for a couple years, and then there were some tax things I wanted to take advantage of, and he didn't really have a lot of knowledge in those areas. So I feel like maybe I was just outgrowing him, and
Oh, it's
so that's why I had to switch over to somebody else again. But now this has been 2 years in a row with the same person. And it was so freaking smooth this time. It was amazing, and I also did these other things that we'll talk about in order to make it more smooth. So
nice. I got lucky with our tax guy, and he was recommended by my husband's parents, so we started working with him as soon as we got married, and it just happened to turn out that he owns a lot of
nice.
rental properties himself, and he doesn't own as many as we do
Mm,
now, but he
yeah,
likes it. So he's been doing the research and, like, super interested in what we're doing, and I think that that has helped. But this year, because we had the 1031 exchange that ended into 2023, it, finalized in 2023, and then I bought the other building with partners. He was a little, right after we finished the taxes, he was like, "Can we have a call so we can, get this ready for next year, do things a little
yeah,
bit differently next year?" I was like, "Yes, please." So he actually had a call with me, and, like, I have all these notes now of exactly what he's going to
nice.
need because especially when you're doing stuff with partners, he had to send them it was an LLC, he had to
Yep.
send them K-1s, and I didn't know all the things that he needed, and so now I do, and now we're gonna do, like, quarterly, I'm gonna send over
Ah,
paperwork
amazing.
so that it's not, like, this mad rush at the end of
Mhm.
tax season, and he can just put in, like, the final numbers towards the end, and then we can have the K-1s out in, like, January, February,
Nice.
so, I'm excited is too big of a word, but, like, I feel relieved knowing that tax season will be
Yeah.
easier this coming
Oh,
year.
that's the thing. It's like if you can get those processes and stuff in place, it makes such a world of a difference to like be ahead of it instead
Yeah.
of always running a little bit behind, aka me.
Yeah, and I feel like the past few years has been let me, reactive
Yes,
instead of
yes.
proactive.
Well said. So, some of the questions that you can ask, we're just gonna, I mean, again, we could have like a whole episode on this probably, but a couple of the questions that you can ask a CPA is what percentage of their business it are real estate investors and business owners. Um, talking through your scenario with them, seeing what sort of tax incentives that they think that you'll qualify for and can take advantage of. And do they own any investment properties themselves? And do they understand reps and bonus depreciation, which we're not necessarily going to get into right now, but that's something that maybe we can have somebody on and they can discuss that in more detail.
Yeah, we'll bring on a
Yeah.
CPA one day.
And a couple other things that we've kind of touched on here is having a separate bank account for each property. I have a separate credit card as well for each property. Uh, Doing this helps me know which Menards or Home Depot receipt goes to which property, and separating all my expenses is such a freaking breeze instead of trying to figure out which property went to what, and then going through those expenses on a regular basis. I think this depends on what kind of system that you have in place, what makes sense for you, but maybe you could do I don't do mine weekly, but maybe if I had like QuickBooks or something, I would, but you can go through them weekly, go through them quarterly, just so that you have a good idea too where you're at for your own tracking purposes. And then finding an accounting system that works for you. So maybe the cheapest option would just be using Excel, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with Excel. I actually prefer to use Excel. I think it's just, I feel like I have more control and I can see all of the things on there. Um, Obviously, it's a little bit more cumbersome because you need to download everything and stuff instead of like QuickBooks, where your entire bank account and everything can just go directly into QuickBooks. But I think it depends. And then Hurdler would be a kind of middle of the road price for different accounting systems. It's $100 a year. I think it's Google that owns it. It's just like QuickBooks, except for you're going to have less functionality. Um, so there's gonna be less reports that you can run, less, like, options you have for different categories and things like that. There's a lot more customization that you can do within QuickBooks. Some of these parts of the system, I think it's okay, depending on what your budget is and how many properties you have, to start smaller, but then know that there maybe is a limit, and that you will outgrow it, and maybe you will need to switch over at some point. But at least have something in place and be looking at it regularly, because those are the habits we want you to implement right away. And
Sure.
then tracking your miles. So I don't really, I use Excel more to track my actual expenses. Um, I used to have QuickBooks. I actually, maybe I'm going to sign up for it again. My CPA would like me to, but I just really like Excel. So, but I actually pay for Hurdler because I track my miles through there, and I also, you're going to need to talk to a CPA if you do qualify for reps, full-time real estate status with maybe you are a full-time realtor as your job, or there's another word for it if you own short-term rental that will help you with your taxes, but you need to be tracking your time. There's certain time. Cool.
Oh, I think you're called a real estate
Yeah,
professional
but isn't there something else?
if you have a certain.
Reps and something else if it's the short-term rental loophole, isn't it? I can't
Oh,
think
I
of
don't
it.
know.
Or maybe
I
they
don't
are the
know that
same. I
one.
don't know. Either way, talk to a CPA. So,
Yeah.
there's either way, there's a certain amount of hours that you're gonna need to hit in order to qualify for these things, and if you get audited by the IRS, they're gonna wanna see your time log. So, I use Hurdler for my time log, and then I also use it to track my miles. It's really great because they it shows me a little map of, like, you went from here to right here, and if I'm not doing it every single day, then at least I can look back and I can see, "Oh, yeah, that's actually to the gym." Well, and you can put on, like, auto tag
Oh.
stuff too, so then when I go to the gym and the dog park and places I go regularly, it's just gonna auto track that as personal.
Mhm. Yeah, for my leasing job, it's a 1099, so, I'm not driving to my properties because 'cause they're
Mhm.
not near me, so I just put on work hours,
Mm.
9 to 5. I use an app called Driver's Note, and so, like, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday is work hours, and then, um, Saturday, Sunday, and the times in between is personal hours, and then I just use the mileage they say from there. I do it a little less formal, I guess, but I'm like, sometimes I have to work on Saturdays and sometimes I do a personal errand during the day. So I feel like it
Yeah.
evens itself.
Yeah. And it's so much better than like, oh, trying to figure it out at the end of the year or like, how many miles was that really? Like, this just gives me peace of mind being like, there's a paper trail to it. And it's almost like a Tinder, but for your miles. Was this personal or was
Yeah.
this professional for your miles?
Yeah.
And then another thing that I do is tracking my receipts and saving copies of my receipts. Because to my understanding, it's great to have a copy of the receipt, not just showing in your bank account that you went to Home Depot. You should show exactly what you also purchased from Home Depot. So, I am a millennial. I don't like to keep a bunch of papers around. So I have an email for each property. For example, 123 Main Street at gmail.com. I will take a picture of that receipt, and then in the title, I will write down Menards 5150 flowers. Maybe I need to buy flowers for like some pots outside or something like that, and then to assign it directly to that property. So if I ever need to look back specifically like for that receipt, then I have some keywords that I can look up to. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's
I like that.
again a game changer so that it doesn't feel overwhelming to keep a bunch of receipts in a box. And, they start to like, you can't read them anymore. Yeah, fade.
Fade.
Thank you. That's the word. I think that's about it. If you are an investor and you have a different way of doing something, or you've kind of had a game changer moment of how to organize something to make your life so much easier, feel free to share it with us. Leave a comment on YouTube, shoot us a DM on Instagram. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, we just concluded our 4-step real estate investing 101
Yeah.
series. I hope you learned some stuff. I know I did. I mean, just hearing from you was actually really good. So I think our listeners, hopefully you listener have learned a lot as well. And if you are wanting, like we talked about, wanting some more personalized attention, want to ask questions, but don't necessarily have a mentor in your area, or just think that we could be a good match for you, we'd love to do a coaching session with you. Just head to investedandrested.com. We're not always going to do these single coaching sessions. Usually we're going to have coaching packages or a group coaching course thingy to come soon. So check that out at investedandrested.com. And they're going to be available until the end of July. So get them before that. I think that's
Thank
it.
you so much for being here with us today. We truly appreciate it. Feel free to send to a friend too if they have been talking about investing in real estate. They want to switch something up. Maybe they want to retire early. Share with somebody you know. And thank you so much again. And we'll see you soon. Bye, friends.
Bye.
Thanks, friends. That's the episode for today. We so appreciate you being here with us, and we'd love if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts.
And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes and check the show notes to sign up for the waitlist for our retreats and future coaching programs. Stay rested, friends, and talk soon.